Welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast, where we bring you the top personalized producers, insurance agents, and industry partners, giving you at least 3 takeaways to 10x your production and build your multi-million-dollar revenue books. So sit back, relax, and become inspired by the success stories and strategies of the world's top insurance minds. Let's roll. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back to the Insurance Producers Podcast. Hey, I've got a person here, man, that I have been following for a while, but I've just got to know like in person yesterday. So great conversation. And here we are, man. A day later, we're talking again. So things are going well. We're on our second date now. So
that's right.
Heath Shearon, man, my man. It's good to have you, bro.
Yeah, dude, it is so good to be here, man. Thanks for having me, Cyrus.
You got it, man. You got it. So, So a lot of people know Heath. Been in the industry for a long time, but I want to have him maybe go in the past, man. Tell us a little bit about your background in the insurance industry, and then we'll get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, dude. I'll start with I'm second generation. And I come from a family of insurance on both sides, and I say both sides meaning my wife's father is an insurance agent. My father's an insurance agent. My brother is an underwriter, similar to your family. Your brother's in the business, and so it's just been in my blood. And my cousins are underwriter. I've got a full background in it. But early on, when my father taught me into coming to work with him at 21 years old, I realized pretty quickly after a couple of years of this was not going to work out. My dad and I love him to pieces, and he's 80 years old, still slinging insurance this day. And I see him all the time. I couldn't work for Dad. We just butted heads too much. And so he was a big life and health guy. And every new idea, everything I had going on, it wasn't working for him. So one of my ideas that I wanted to pursue at a young age and never did get a chance to was opening a P&C agency or getting into P&C. And Dad said, nah, we're going to stick with our bread and butter, what we know, which was smart for him. But for me, I had a passion for the home, the auto, the commercial, all of that. So opened up a P&C shop at 22, 23 years old, as well as did some benefits, started out from scratch on my own and grew that business, pretty quickly on the backs of cold calling and, just hustling and getting out and doing and cross-selling Dad's book and whatnot. Anyhow, grew that to a point where someone approached me and wanted to buy it from me. And so I, as a young kid, I sold it and had opportunity shortly after that to start on the carrier side. Went to work for a company some of you may have heard of called EMC, Employers Mutual Casualty, out of Des Moines, Iowa, and ran as a marketing territory manager, marketing manager, whatever, for nearly 10 years. Really enjoyed my time at EMC and enjoyed my time working with agents, learned a lot from agents. And through some things in my life, I decided it was time for me to get out of that and get back into the agency side. I felt like it was pulling me. So I had the opportunity to join up with another local agent here in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so I joined up, got back into production, got back into, the day-to-day ops of an agency and really enjoyed it. It was a totally different ball game this time around 10 years later, but really loved it. And then again, opportunity came to get, to exit out and did that during the pandemic. Because again, I didn't know if we were all going to die or if Jesus was coming back or what was going to happen next. So I had the opportunity to get out again, took that and started doing podcasting full time, started doing consulting, started getting involved in some content marketing. And that's where I find myself today, full time doing Insurance Town and full time doing Vertifor and full time consulting and full time just being, the mayor in any way that I can. And so really enjoying what I'm doing at Vertifor, really enjoying what I'm doing with the podcast. And just life's been good, man. This industry has been good to me. I'm a passionate fan of the industry and always will be.
That's awesome. First of all, I feel bad for you because of your whole family is an insurance, man. That's those Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks are not.
They're boring, bro. Yeah. Oh yeah. And there was even more of a wrinkle in there for a while because my father and my wife worked together for a little bit. And so that was always fun dynamic too. So, but that's a whole other day.
Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts, man, on the family portion of it. So you have three kids, right? And I know
Yeah, dude.
we're gonna dig a little bit deeper into the family side and what that means to you. But do you see your three kids potentially being in some capacity in insurance?
Man, my gut would say no,
Okay.
and not for any other reason other than their interests. But again, my kids are teenagers. You know, when I was a teenager, I never thought I'd be in insurance. You know, I tried to go as
Mm-hmm.
far away from insurance as I could. I grew up in it, grew up going to all the conferences, and I grew up, you know, going on all the trips with dad, and the whole thing. And I thought, man, this is glorious. This is glamorous. It's fun. But no, I don't. And I'm not going to push it on them either. If they decide to get into it, great. But I'm not going to push them because I feel like the more I push, the less they're going to want to. I just hope that they can see, you know, the lifestyle that we live and see the passion that my wife and I both have for our industry, and my brother and all those people. I hope that they'll want to, but I don't see it. Who knows?
Yeah. I would say, man, has come a long ways from like even 10 years ago. When you think of like 10 years ago, if they say, oh, you want to be in insurance, it was like the only options were like producer, CSR, or maybe agency owner. Now, at least like marketing, like you got a lot of dev people, right, that work on the insurance side. You got a CTO, you got a CMO.
Yeah.
You got like a lot of different, like a marketing person, like a business development that goes around and builds relationships. So like there's
Yeah.
so many different dynamics of insurance today than it was even like 10 years ago, in my opinion, that maybe it will work.
Yeah. You know, I'm hoping, but, you know, I'm not going to, lose sleep over it, you know, if they don't. So I just want what's best for them. As you and I have talked about being both family men, like whatever my kids, you know, whatever their passions are, whatever they want to do in life. But I'm hoping that we can inspire them to lean that direction of insurance, whatever that capacity may be. But yeah, it's been a good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I grew up on a golf course. I grew up in the country club life. You know, I can't say that I ever wanted for anything growing up. My dad provided a
Mm-hmm.
good lifestyle, and I'm hoping I'm doing the same thing for my kids. You know, and so it's a good industry. And if you're in the industry right now, no matter how hard it is right now, I still always believe it's a great industry. Stick with it. It's going to pay you back, you know, 10
Yeah,
times.
no, 100%, 100%. Um, I'm curious. So our backgrounds are obviously a little bit different. Like you and my wife, for example, like country club, all that stuff, like growing up, right? And then me, refugee, Afghanistan, completely
Yeah.
different way, kind of grew up completely different way. Does that, I'm curious on between us two, I guess, on the dynamic side of like, does it make you raise your kids any differently than like, you know what I'm saying? Like for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, I want them to start working at 14, like I did. And my wife's like, no, like that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm curious your
No,
thoughts on that.
I agree. No, the moment that my son could get a job, I had him working. He's, obviously driving now and he's working and he's got a job after school every day. So yeah, I wanted that because my father wanted that for me,
Hmm.
at a young age. And so I think it might be, maybe different for somebody else you might ask that to, but my father grew up, without a father and,
Hmm.
poor and all that kind of stuff. And so, coming from that to where he
Hmm.
is, he wanted me to understand the value of work. So I
Cool.
had my first job at 14 working at Hardee's flipping burgers. And so I had to get a work permit and driver's permit and all that. So for me, I wanted my kids to do the same. And so,
Hmm.
but yeah, I still want them to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I still want them to be able to go, do certain things. And I try to spoil them responsibly, if that makes sense. And I don't want them to be silver spoon necessarily, but I do want them to enjoy some of the finer things like that I've worked hard for, but I also want them to understand the value of hard work.
That's awesome, man. No, I love that, dude, because like, my backstory and
Yeah, I do.
I told you we went to Mexico and my 5-year-old flies to Mexico and back first class. 5-year-old.
Nice.
When I was when I was 5-year-old, I was literally dodging bullets and bombs in Afghanistan and
Yeah.
this dude's living first class, got his iPad on. He's like,
asking for a Sprite the whole time, the whole trip on the way to Mexico. I'm like, man, you got it too good, man. You got it way
Yeah,
too.
but there's a part of you as a dad that's like, man, I'm proud. I did that. I've worked my butt off for this, and you should be proud of that, Cyrus. Knowing your backstory, I love that for you, and I love that for Mateo. Right? No?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Good for him too, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, it was just a surreal moment for me, man,
Yeah,
because
I
I'm like,
bet.
okay, like I gotta make sure the kids are growing up and like responsible and all that stuff and kind and be the good human beings. But at the same time, man,
Sure.
I don't ever feel bad about doing the things I do in my life because I'm like, man, I work hard. I don't really care about what social media and some of these other people think. Like I'm living my life. I've worked hard. If you don't like that, that's kind of up to you. But anyways, I was curious on your thoughts on that. So yeah, so let's go. So let's get into the insurance, man. The first time I want to go back to the first time because I think it was
Sure.
a lot of people that listen to this podcast, man, are producers, agency owners.
Yeah.
They're dealing with the same thing, man. Like they're maybe with their dad or their mom or their significant other or a friend that got into the insurance, friends. They get into the insurance because of that. And then they just don't know when to like pull the trigger and move and go do their own thing. What
Yeah.
did that transition look like, man? Was it hard? What was that look? What was that like? What was that like?
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. It was definitely difficult, and it was definitely awkward. Those first Christmases and Thanksgivings afterwards, because it was like Dad's whole thing. Going back to your conversation earlier, was I want my boys to take over my business. I want my boys, talking about me and my brother, to be the next generation to come in and take over. And we had this legacy, and maybe their kids and their kids, and he had this dream, of having all those things, and he worked his butt off for that. And then when I come to him and say, Dad, this is not the route I want to go, it broke his heart. I'm not going to lie.
Mm,
And we've had this conversation still to this day. Like I said earlier, he's 80, still slinging insurance
mm,
to this very day. And I moved him into the office building that I'm in, and I see him all the time. And he's still to this day is like, man, when are you going to take over? And I'm like, bro, I'm
mm,
not, but at the same time, it's still a passion. I don't think he'll ever let that go until he takes his last breath, that somebody's going to, but it wasn't my deal. I mean, I'm very respectful of what he does and I love it. But for me and him, I'd rather have my dad than have him as a boss.
mm,
And it's hard for he and I to see that because he feels like he could take those hats off. But for me personally, and there may be a lot of second generation guys listening right now or ladies listening,
mm-hmm.
it's hard for me. It was hard for me to put that hat on and take that hat off. Like he was always dad to me. So when he would come down on me or he would say things to me or he would get on me, I couldn't not take it personally. Whereas if a boss came to me and said, like if Cyrus was my boss and said, hey, this is what I would do, or lovingly instruct me or give me constructive criticism, I could take that much better from you. But when it's my dad and he knew my backstory, he knows the life I'm going, he knows the struggles, and he knows this, or he knows that I'm like, right now, really, bro, you're going to put that on me? Or, you know what's going on in our family, what this, and you're going to ask me for that, or, does that make sense? And I can't really think of a good example,
100%.
but it was just one of those things I could never take off the son hat long enough. And maybe that's immaturity, but I was 21 years old. I couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
and I think even now to this day, I probably couldn't take those hats
Mm-hmm.
on and off. So for him, he could, but for me, I could not. And I tell
No,
people all the time, whether it's prior employees or staff that I've worked with, one of the big things I always talked about was leave home at home and work at work. So when you go home, I don't want you taking agency stuff at home. I don't want you taking those problems at home. I don't want you worrying about, that person that cussed you out today or that, struggle you had at work. Leave that at work work. When you come from home, if your wife made you mad this morning, or your kids were late, or they didn't get up, or they forgot to make their lunch, whatever it might be, leave that at home. And so I was a big proponent in that, and I wanted to have people be able to do that, if that makes sense. And some people may not agree with that, but I'm a big believer in that.
100%. I think that's one of and that's really hard, right? Like it's hard for me a lot of times to get home. I work on this daily is when I get home, man, like I leave about 4:30 all the time. When I get home, like I try to put my phone upstairs and don't touch it for 2 or 3 hours. So you intentional time with the kids. But it is really difficult because as an agency owner, like you're always thinking of insurance, man. Like you're always thinking like,
Yeah.
okay, what went wrong? Because like I feel like something
Yeah.
always goes wrong into the insurance world. especially in agency world, is like, is everything okay? Is your
Yeah.
agency okay and all that stuff. So it is really difficult. So for those people, man, that have a hard time of basically turning it off, and I know you obviously work on it and you've done a really good job of it. Is there like for me specifically, is there a tip or a trick or something that you almost have to like trick your mind?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because one of the joys that you and I have, and one of the things that, being a podcaster and knowing some of the people that we know, one of the things I learned from a guy, Scott Howell, you probably know who he is, who I'm talking about. He brought up one time to me that, when he comes home, he changes clothes the moment he gets home. He takes off whatever, like the moment he gets in, I just get this picture of Scott Howell. If you know Scott, if you don't, look him up and you can have the same Bear pictures I do. I just picture this big old dude and he's just, taking off his clothes at the door, butt ass naked, and goes to his room and puts on his home clothes, so to speak. It's pajama pants and a t-shirt, or basketball clothes, or jeans and a t-shirt, whatever. But for him, and so I started kind of doing the same thing. When I come home, I take my shoes off, I go into my bedroom, I do my thing, change clothes, take a minute, breathe. And, a lot of times my wife, have to, if I don't do it, she'll stop me. Hey, you're at home now. It's time to check that. Because I will come home sometime in my voice and, the way I'm talking, and it's like, wait, we're not your clients. We're not your staff. We're not your this. Let's check that a minute. I have a wife that's really good about that. She had to do it to me yesterday because I was just one of those days where I was just going. And so it's like, wait a minute, you're at home now. It's a different intensity when you're at home, being a dad, being a husband, than it is being boss or being producer or being CSR or being client focused. So, one thing that Scott taught me, that I've hung on to was that. The other thing would be, just no matter what your commute is home, take that time on your way home to decompress, to take advantage of that. One thing I used to do, and I'm so glad that I've changed in this, is I would work all the way up until I pulled the driveway. I'd be on the phone on the way home with a client or with a staff member or with somebody, or even listening to an insurance podcast. But now I've trained myself. I have a 10-minute commute home, which is not bad, not far, but it's long enough where I could just put on some music, or I could pray, or I could, call my wife even sometimes, just check in with her. Hey, how was your day, honey? What's going on with you? Before we get home and become mom and dad, check in with her. But that way, that 10-minute drive for me, I check out of work and I check into, okay, here's where I'm going. Here's what's going on, and so whether it's good or bad tips, that's kind of things that I've started to do in my own life, and it's really helped me.
Man, I do the change of clothes every time. I have that routine down. It kind of tells me, okay, like you said, you're home, and put my phone upstairs. I'm going to start. I always work till I get home. I'm even like finishing up like a call right when I walk inside. I'm going to start implementing. I've got about a 15-minute drive. I'm going to start implementing. And sometimes listening to like insurance podcast or whatever doesn't help either, because like you're still in the insurance world. See, music, pray, like you said. I like that, man. I'm gonna implement that. I appreciate you sharing that. That's a really good one. Okay, so tell me about the life of the first time agency owner, first time producer, 21, 22 years old, man. For a lot of people that are listening, younger, maybe first time doing all that stuff. What was that period look like? What made you successful in that period?
Man, it was a grind, an absolute, grind that first couple of years. And I knew that. I had people tell me, my father told me this early on, and you've all heard this. If you're listening to this podcast already, you've probably heard this too. The old saying, and it's very true, it takes 2 to 3 years to be successful in the insurance business. People say that all the time, and I was like, whatever. I'm going to be that outlier. I'm going to make it, my first year or my first 6 months. I'm going to really kill it. And so I had that mentality, but I knew, because Dad had told me. And once I got in and I got my teeth kicked in a few times in the beginning, I realized, this is a grind. This is a 2 to 3 year. I got to bust my ass. Can I say that on the show? Sorry. I'm going to bust my butt. I'm going to bust it every day, and I'm going to hit it hard. And, and as much as I say early on about not working with my dad, working out, he taught me a lot of things. And one of the other things that I'll never forget, when I first started, I was like, all right, Dad, what do I got to do? This is when I was still working for him. And I still use this principle to this day, but he was like, bro, you got to go out and grind. And he was like, 20 calls a day. I don't care. And calls for us was drop-ins. I didn't do phone calls. This was back pre-Google, pre-Facebook, all that kind of stuff, back in 2001, 2, 3, in that area. I was having to get out every day and knock doors every single day. And he was like, I don't care. Your teeth will get kicked in after about 3 or 4. Keep going. Keep knocking. Eventually, after 20 knocks, somewhere in that 1 to 20, or probably 4 to 20, you're going to get some people say, yeah, you can come back, come see me. Yeah, I'm interested in listening. And he taught me, don't go in to sell anything. Go in just to set an appointment for the next visit. And just that's all your goal is. If they let you talk, great. But your goal is just to say, hey, just stopping in for a minute. Just love to set up a time to talk to you about what I do for a living, whatever it might be, whatever the script was back then. But it was just the grind. And I say all that to say one word of grind, but it was just working hard, hitting the numbers, and going after it. And I truly believe still to this day, no matter what, it's a numbers game. It's getting out, making your calls, making your drops, doing the things every single day. And that was what it was for me early.
Yeah. I to this day, man, there are certain things that you remember from certain parts of your life, whether it was a job or whatever, that you take with you forever, man, for the rest of your life. So one thing at Wells Fargo that when I used to work there and about right after college was like 8 a.m. meeting every Monday morning. Like that's where like you have to report your numbers to the whole group. So like if you had the worst numbers out of like 10 personal bankers at the time, like that was embarrassing. So like if you didn't do X, Y, and Z, man, you gotta go then and like be ashamed almost in front of like all these people to be able to. So we implemented that on Monday morning, every Monday morning, 8 a.m. Man, we sit down, we go over our numbers, everybody tell their numbers. If you had a bad week, okay, there's another week. It's okay, we keep rolling. And then from State Farm, one of the best things I learned, Heath, like you said, was like butts in the chairs. If you sit with 3 people, if you get 3 people to come to your office, or obviously with Zoom and everything, you could do 6 now because it's easier. If you can sit with 3 people a day, you will be successful in this industry. And that I don't think that will ever change. You think?
No, I don't think it'll ever change either. I don't. I'll tell you, early on, when I first left Dad's agency, I got to tell you this quick story, but he hooked me up with this other manager. And as I was transitioning and trying to get, what I was doing, he was like, hey, there's this guy that I know, and he sells, life insurance leads, and you go out and you make these calls and do the thing. And I would go to these hype meetings every single Tuesday, and we would go in and we'd all get around this testosterone filled, and everybody's high-fiving and slapping, and we'd tell our numbers and, be like, I called on 10 people and I landed 5 and this much premium, and we'd all just be, all right. And the first 8 or 10 weeks, I was like right there in the top, top 1 or 2 people. And I'd be like, I sold everything. And I was real hyped up. And, probably about week 10 or 12, I started getting the leads that were kind of recycled leads, and they weren't the best of leads. And it was just, deflated a little bit. I started dropping down the leaderboard. And one of these times I came in, I'd only sold 2 or so. And, it was kind of a bad week. And the guy, hollered at me and he called me out in front of like 75 other dudes or whatever. And, producers, females, dudes, whatever. And I was like, what happened to you, Sharon? Why didn't you sell? What happened? And I got super mad. And, I was like, and again, I'm 23, 24. And I had, adrenaline pumping. I was like, the leads suck, bro. The leads suck. I remember he's like, hold on a minute. He took off. And he disappeared for a minute. I didn't know where he went. He came back out with this. And for those who listen, don't know what this is. There's things called phone books back in the day that we used to have before the internet. But it was this big, like 10-pound phone book. It was a really thick phone book. He came out, threw it at me as hard as he could from across the room, hit me dead in the chest. It was like, there's your effing leads from now on. And I'll never forget that moment of just like, I was sitting there complaining about leads that I was purchasing, and it wasn't the leads. It was me. And it was, one of these things of like, I didn't need to use that excuse. If the leads didn't work, if they were recycled leads, or if they were not good, or if, those first 5 or 6 calls didn't work, you got to go out and just grind and get some more. So at that point forward, I quit buying leads. And I became a top producer in this organization until I started my PNC agency by just grinding and just showing up every day, clocking into work, knocking on doors, making the calls. And I ended up getting back at the top of the leader. My goal was to get back to the top before. That was a 6-month period of my life that, really just taught me a lot more about the grind, but it helped me build enough income to start my agency from scratch. But I'll just never forget, like, it taught me no excuses. The leads don't matter. what you're doing every day doesn't matter. And that bruise is not there physically, but in my mind, that bruise of that phone book hitting my chest will always be there. Of don't have excuses. You can blame leads, you can blame the phone call, you can blame the rates, you can blame the carrier, the hard market, the soft market. I don't care what it is, but at the end of the day, it comes down to how hard do you want to work? How hard do you want to grind? And are you willing to put in the work? Sorry, I went a little long-winded there, but that was something that impacted me forever.
Yeah, no, those are the times, man, that you'll remember that for the rest of your life. And I think that's a lesson for your kids even, is like, hey, you got to take accountability, instead of blaming other people, because at the end of the day, man, it's you versus you. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So I appreciate you sharing that story, man. That means a lot. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just, you go ahead.
So you left, obviously went an independent, and then you obviously got acquired or sold, obviously right before 08, 09, somewhere in there,
somewhere
right?
in there. Yeah. 08.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like, man? Because a lot of people are like, man, do I want to sell? Do I not want to sell? And you've done it 2 times. So like, opportunity came, of course, but like, was that hard? Was it like the right move now looking back? Like what?
Yeah, I definitely, I don't believe in, accidents. I think all things happen for a reason. So I can't go back and say I regret it. But at the same time, it was definitely a hard move because, I'd watched, as I said, that grind of 3-4 years of, from, 02 to 7 or 8. So whatever that is, I can't do math very well, but that grind of building and growing and having other producers believe in me and staff come in and believe in me. And as you know, you've built an agency of, a good size agency now. Once you start building that and having that impact and having those people that trust you, and then you have this opportunity, it was tough. And the hardest thing for me was that thinking of the staff, thinking of the clients, who doesn't want to make the money on it and who doesn't want to have the opportunity to do that. But at the same time, I was more concerned with that, what that was going to look like. And so, that was really hard for me. However, I thought, at this young of an age, I was still in my 20s, to be able to put some in the bank for my future kids, college funds, or you never know, entrepreneurial side of me. I could use it for another business. I could use it for rainy day, whatever it might be. But yeah, it was definitely something that I thought about very hard. But again, young kid, saw the opportunity and I took it. And then I saw a challenge right behind that of, going to work for a carrier. And I was like, this is something I've never done before. Why not?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So EMC marketing rep, obviously, that was about like 2010 to 2020, somewhere in there, somewhere right around there for a long time. What did that carrier side teach you, man? What are some things like, because a lot of us are curious. So like, what's on the background of like what happens inside of your Nationwide, your EMCs, your auto owners, or whatever progressives? Like, what was that like, and what do they think of like the independent channels and the relationships and all that?
Yeah, I will say I was pleasantly surprised because I really just, I'd always having that agency owner and that producer mindset. I just kind of sometimes felt like I had a great relationship with my underwriters and stuff. And then some of those I felt like, man, all they do is say no. They don't want to do business with me. And it's kind of me against them instead of a partnership. I never quite understood that until I went to work for a carrier and we started having the conversations and maybe not all carriers, but EMC, the conversations we would have internally were about who are our partners, who are the ones that really get it, who want to write a book of business with us, who want to grow, who want to do this. And it didn't matter premium wise, because they could have, 100,000 on the books, or they could have 2 million. What mattered was the partnership. Do they get us? Do they submit complete submissions? Do they understand our appetite? Do they bang on the desk too hard when we don't do it right? There were some agencies that may have had 10 million in premium with us, but we knew they weren't necessarily a partner. Excuse me. But they, because of the way they acted and they expected certain things. But then there was those ones that may have had, 400,000 or 500,000, but we knew if they submitted something, they knew our appetite. They knew what was going on. So again, not to be too long with it, but they knew the partnerships and that mattered to them.
Mm.
And when I sat down with underwriters as a young marketing rep in my, 20s, early 30s, really sitting down with them and saying, sit down with them and asking what are they looking for? What kind, because each underwriting desk is different. They all operate autonomously. So yeah, they have to operate within the guidelines of the underwriting guidelines, but they could also make decisions on their own of what they wanted to write, what they didn't. So they would sit down, each one of them would say, okay, within one company, and one of them might be like, man, I love C-stores and motels. And the other one I might sit with right next door might say, man, I love to write contractors. That's my jam. And then, the other underwriter 4 cubicles down might have said, I really like to write truckers GL. I don't know. They just all had different personalities. And then some of them may want a full submission, and they want to do that. And other ones might say, I just talk to them on the phone. They can give me some information and shoot in a court app and I'll get it done. It just all depended. And some of them like the how's your mama and them conversations and get to know them really well. And some of them are like, I don't want to get to know their personal life. I just want to know, can we write it? What's the price? What do you need to do by it? When do you need to get it by? So I just think it was interesting to see that, the carrier side, they really do want to write business. They want to work with partners. They want to have that relationship like we want to have with our clients. Producers, underwriters, producers, CSRs, service staff in the agency, that's their clients. So they want to make sure they make you happy, because at the end of the day, they work off quotas, they work off of commission splits, or they work off of bonuses. And, the better you do, the better they do. And so you're a long-winded answer, but it was a pleasant surprise to see and to learn from that, so that when I got back in, 8 or 9 years later to owning an agency or getting involved in agency life and producing again, I was able to take some of those lessons and apply those.
What would you recommend to producers and agency owners? What are some things we could do, I guess, or producers or agency owners could do to deepen some of those relationships? Because I truly believe, man, it is a partnership, like you said. So like, what are some things we can do or producers could do to strengthen that relationship that could potentially turn into more maybe submissions or whatever that you could potentially need from the carrier side?
Yeah, I think, depending on the role of the agency, but I definitely think one of the things that I would recommend is whoever that person is in your agency is working with the underwriter. I would say from as early as you can on the onset of working with that underwriter, find out what they're looking for. Find out what makes them tick, especially in the commercial line side. If you're heavy commercial, you're going to work with your underwriters a little bit more than personal lines, obviously. But on the commercial side, find out, what they like to write, how they want their submissions in. Do they want a narrative or not? Do they want to know what details they want to know? How do they want those submissions? And if you can speak their language like that, that's going to go a long way with underwriters. On the personal line side or the commercial line side, what I would say is learn that appetite, learn how they want to do business, get on the same page with them as far as goals go, align with them on goals, because some carriers, they want to come in and write everything you got. And then there's some that they want to be a little more picky. They want to cherry pick the good stuff, or they want to write certain types of business. Find out what that looks like. So you either don't overwhelm them with submissions, or you don't submit not enough, or you don't submit the right things. I would just say try to align with them on goals. If you've got an underwriter on personal lines or commercial that says, hey, my goal, I would like to get $250,000 this year out of you in new business. Okay, let's sit down and figure out what that looks like and kind of work that out so that they know you're going to submit the right business to get to that number. And I'm just making up numbers. And, what they're looking for. They know what you're looking for. So then y'all can align. So that way, if you're looking at third quarter and they've declined however many submissions and you're only sitting at 100,000 in premium, you can be like, hey, bro, we agreed to 250. I need you to start saying yes on some things. I'm submitting what you want, or open a dialogue. What am I doing wrong here? Why am I not getting enough yeses? And they may give you the straight up answer and be able to help you, or they might say, we're at capacity for this type of business or whatever it might be. And you work out that plan together. And, again, treat it like a partnership, treat it like, a relationship, a marriage, a best friendship, whatever you want to do, is make sure it's open dialogue. You're on the same page with goals. You're aligned with the submission strategy. You're aligned with all of those things. And I think if you treat it like a true partnership, you're going to get a lot more out of it than those people are like, you SOB, you declined everything and you always say no and you don't want to help me out and you suck. And I'm so that they don't, that's not going to get you anywhere. That's just going to get 100%. Your food spit in if you're going restaurant terms.
100%. 100%. And guys, things are going to turn around. Like, it's a tough time on the personal line side and commercial side with, there's a lot of habitational stuff. Obviously, nobody wants there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now. If you know anything, about insurance, man, up and down, it's a down environment right now. It's going to be up at one point, and you're going to need those partnerships. They're going to want you to write new business. I remember 2-3 years ago, man, they were like dying for business carriers. And now carriers are telling us on the personal, hey, man, like, I don't want that. Send it to that other carrier. That's going to change, and it's going to come back to it. And that relationship's got to be there. And, you build deeper relationships in the downtimes, man, because those are the times that, like, you honestly is where they need you the most to do certain things, and you need them the most to do certain things. So I would say in this time, man, take this time to build those relationships, because the sun will come out at one point. And when that does come out, man, the people that have had the best relationships will get the first dibs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. More, man.
Last topic, man. Hard market. As we just talked about. What's your take on the hard market, man? What do you see that hard market? When do you see it changing? What's your take on it? What should producers, agency owners, what should they be seeing or doing?
Man, I'll tell you, when it comes to hard market conversations, I will say that, it is, it's definitely, and I don't think we're at the end. I think, we're definitely in a hard market. And I think it's one of those things that during my lifetime, and I'm 44 years old. I like to still think I'm 38, but, 44, in my lifetime, there's been only 3 true hard markets. 85 to 87, we had some major lawsuits, some tort reform going on with Allstate, Aetna, Cigna, some of those companies that were in some things going on. And then in, 01 to 04, obviously with 9/11, that triggered one. Mm-hmm. And then you've got now, which was kind of triggered by the pandemic, but then we've also got some other things in play with, labor cost. There's a lot going on right now within that. And I think that, if we can just understand that, here's the thing, what I will say, as far as predictions go, I think we're still another year and a half into this, before we see that sun coming out, so to speak. But I do think we'll see a lightening up. I think we'll start seeing some of the rates not take as deep of rate increase. We might see, a little bit less, because construction costs are coming back down a little bit. We're seeing, quite a few things there. Construction costs are, predicted to be, increasing by only 1.5 times, and maybe 1%, in 2025. So as the construction costs come down, then the claims will be a little less, and we'll start seeing a little bit less of that. I say all that, I could give you a whole bunch, of stats and things I'm seeing. But at the end of the day, what I would say is if you can educate your customers on what's going on in this hard market and why we're in it, and help them to see that, it's not your fault. First thing I would say, if I could, just give some advice from old Uncle Heath here, when you get those calls, and you probably get them every day of, the customer's upset, the rates went up. Why are my rates going up? Whatever it might be. First of all, it's not your fault. So don't apologize. You don't, go there. Yeah, have empathy, but don't apologize, because it's not your fault. Number 2, explain to them why. Hey, here's the deal. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had some major claims. We've had Hurricane Ian. We've had, this hurricane. We've had that. We've had tropical storms. We've had, droughts. We've had wildfires in California. We've had a lot of things going on. These carriers are having to recoup some of that. They're having to pay for some of those losses. Long-term strategy, they have to take these increases right now. They're at capacity, so they have to fold out of the states for a while. They have to go on moratoriums. Just help them to understand some of that, because a lot of times they think it's your fault. They think that you control the rates, and you as a CSR, you don't. You as the agent, the producer, the agency owner, you don't control that, obviously. So if you could explain that to them and say, hey, this is what's going on, this is why, then I think that's going to help them to a little bit more understand. And, if you can just talk in general, like when you start talking about labor costs, you start talking about material goods, you start talking about gas, you start talking about milk for that matter, and eggs, people start like, oh, you know what? You're right. And the other thing that I would say, on top of that, on the heels of that, is once you can, have some empathy, listen to them, try to educate them on why we're in a hard market. I would also say the other part of that is as we talked about with underwriters, continue to build that relationship and continue to work on that. Because again, going back to some other conversations we've had, is people like to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. We've all heard that saying. And so if you can build that rapport with them, build that relationship and kind of empathize with them, one of the things that, I tell people all the time as I'm consulting with agencies is, don't be afraid to tell them your own side of it, to say, hey, my rates just went up. My wife and I just took a 22% increase, with my carrier. So we don't get, special pricing because we're insurance agents. We're right here with you, and, my grocery bills went from $100 a week to $200 a week or whatever it might be, try to empathize with it, kind of share that with them. Like, oh yeah. So they don't feel like it's you against them. Then it's more of you two working together to try to figure this out. And then, try to walk through that with them and say, okay, knowing this is going on, what's going on? Hey, I may not be able to get you a cheaper price. I may not be able to lower your premiums. I may not be able to move your carriers. But if you stick with me long term, this is only going to happen. Again, going back to what I told you a minute ago, if you can educate them, we've only had 3 true hard markets since 1980s, So if you think about that, this is only a short period of time. And then we're going to go right back to a softer market, which again has its own challenges, but we're going to level out. We're going to see rates come back to, an easier rate for them to handle. So if you can convince them that, you're their teammate, you're their buddy, you're their advocate, you're helping them, and realize, you can make an impact on them and you can help them out. I think it's going to make things a little bit easier on that. And that may have been the answer you were looking for. But as far as hard market goes, I can't make a prediction of where. I just feel like, maybe some people say third quarter. I would say we're, we might be at the beginning of the third quarter coming into the, but I still think at the end of the day, we're already, I think, at the record of like the longest hard market cycle. Typically they're 2 years, 2.5. And we've had some blips on the radar in 08, 09 with the mortgage crisis. We've had some things here and there, but this one has been extended because of so many other things going on, not just. And once you start bringing those up, people understand weather. People understand hurricanes. People understand devastation. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. We had one of the biggest tornadoes ever come through our state. And there's still blue tarps everywhere. It looks like a war zone. A year later, it happened on March 31st of last year. So it's been almost a year. Wow. And there's still people without roofs. There's still people living in motel rooms. There's still people struggling from that. And that had to hit insurance companies left and right. We had 2 domiciled in our state pull out of the state and close their doors because this storm and because of the activity that's going on because of it. So I think if you can empathize with people to help them explain, the customers that are going to stay with you are going to stay with you. The ones that are going to leave you, you probably didn't want anyway.
100%.
Sorry, it's a long answer. My bad.
That's a great answer, man. We're gonna get through it. But I tell my team all the time, like, honestly, they don't know. Like, their rates just went up by like $2,000, and like they have no idea. So until you educate them and tell them what's going on, show them some New York Times posts and Washington Post or Omaha, whatever, show them some stuff to let them know kind of what's going on. And because they have no idea. So of course they're freaking out. They've never seen a $2,000 increase. And like, so you can't, if you don't explain it to them, they don't know. Of course they're going to be freaking out. So we all got to educate as an industry, man. That's 100%. So on my last question, man, it's.
But can I say one more thing on that real quick? I'm sorry. One more thing.
Please.
I would say a lot of people right now, and I'm talking with a lot of agents that reach out. They're telling me, what do I do when they want to shop? Whatever. One thing I will say is just to be careful of shopping immediately. If that's your go-to right now in your agency is to immediately shop, I would caution you in a few ways because number one, let's look at why there'd be a bad move. And explain this to your customers. Let's say that I shop your rate to find you a better rate and you have an inspection. They may find some stuff on that inspection that you didn't have before because it's been 4 or 5 years. So now they're coming to you and saying, oh, we may not be able to take this. And now you've risked that and you've left a carrier to go to another one and you've got some things that have come up. Maybe it was unaddressed hazards. Maybe it was a decline in property conditions, things like that. The other thing I think about when you rewrite a customer, you got to let them know there's going to be a down payment. You don't have a down payment when you stay here. But if we rewrite with somebody else, now I'm going to ask you for 25% down, things like that. So just think of those kind of things and be looking at, what could happen. Age of roof may be older now. Now there's carriers looking at 7 to 10 year roofs being surcharged instead of 20. So little things like
Yeah.
that, just be careful of. I know you need to go on to the next
100%.
question, but I had to get that out.
No, that's a great answer, man. I like the add on there for sure. So what does okay, so this is our last question. We end the podcast every year, every time on this. So win the day. So how does he, you know, how does he win your day? If you could maybe pinpoint one or two things that you do on a daily basis. Like for me, for example, it's like I have to like give my wife a kiss at the end of the night. Do we know that like me and her are kind of like cool? Like that for me, and then waking up at 5:30 in the morning to get a quick workout with what I do. So like that kind of starts my day. So just an example right there. If we had to pick one or two things, man, to where like you won your day, what would that one or two thing be?
Man, that's a great question. Work related, I would say I start off my day with the big three. Like I have my big three items I need to get done by the end of the day. There's probably 100 on my list, but if I can get
Mm-hmm.
these three big items, if I
Mm-hmm.
can check off those three items, then I've won my work day, so to speak, in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at the end of the day, that quality time with my kids and my family and my wife,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just curl up in bed to watch an episode of our favorite show, or if it's, me getting, I love to cook. So if it's getting to cook dinner with my kids and just sit down with them, I've won my day there. Now that doesn't always happen because kids playing sports or they got practice
Mm-hmm.
or they got this, that, but the days that we can really have some of that time, I try to be intentional with my kids and spend time with each one of them. I have three of them. So spending time each one of them, at least 20, 30 minutes, sit down. Hey, how was your day? What's going on? Let's check in. What can I pray for you for? How can I help you today? What's going on? If I could do that, I've won.
Beautiful.
That I've done something right today. God's blessed me with some great kids and a great wife. I want to make sure that I'm serving that.
100%. Man, like the mayor, man, you dominated that episode, brother. I
Dude,
appreciate you being on. Any last minute on the consulting side or on the agency side, anything you want to any last things you want to share, or if people want to contact you, my man, how can they reach you? That would be great.
Yeah, dude, I would love to hear from any of you. It's just Heath at insurancetownpodcast.com. If you're ever interested in just, whether it's consulting or just asking questions or just talking, or if you listen to the show and you've got a great story, you'd love to share, whether it's on this podcast or if you want to come on mine and talk, I'd love to get people's stories out. And, guys, if you want to flip over to my channel, I interviewed Cyrus. I would love to have you listen to him on my show and then come back and listen to this one the rest of the time. But I would just say if you wanted to, you just have, a friend in your corner, reach out, Heath at Insurance Town Podcast, or my cell number is 501-908-2395. And I love hearing from people and I love giving back to this industry.
All right, my man. I appreciate you, brother. And I appreciate you being on, and this won't be our last time talking. I promise you that.
No way.
All right,
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Yep.